You are doing an awesome job at work, and every performance review has high marks because your results speak for themselves. Then suddenly you're let go. Sound unfair? Well, it happens more often than you think. And today we're breaking down the truth about performance reviews and what they really mean for your job. And stick around until the end because I'm going to talk with you about steps you can take to protect yourself. Hi, I'm Harlow Reed, creator of the HR Insider. Today we're talking about what you can do if you are terminated following an outstanding performance review. On this channel, I look at real legal cases that demonstrate how federal protections under the law are applied in court. These cases can help you by providing insight about how the same protections might apply to you if your circumstances fall under the same laws. And today I've got a fascinating case for you. We're talking about a situation where a Walmart employee, was terminated after receiving great reviews over a 15-year period. Let's talk about it. The content shared on this channel is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional legal advice. Always consult a qualified attorney or HR professional for specific guidance tailored to your needs. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This story starts with Marlo Spaeth, who was born with Down syndrome. Marlo worked at the Walmart store in Manitowoc, Wisconsin for 15 years, and during this time, she received 16 annual performance evaluations with ratings of solid performer or meets expectations, and she consistently received pay raises during that time. Performance reviews are more than just a formality. You have to take them seriously because it's not just about a manager giving feedback about your performance. They can be used as a very powerful tool to help justify or even discredit employment decisions that your employer will make at a later time. It's common for employees to assume that if they have strong, consistent performance and that's demonstrated on their reviews, that it's job security and it means that they have a clear path for advancement at that company. But that's not always true. And with Marlo, she was one of those people who had a very strong performance record. However, despite that, she was terminated after 15 years of stellar performance. In Marlo's case, she was unable to follow a new rule that Walmart put in place. And this new policy and Marlo's inability to follow it was Walmart's justification for her termination. They basically said in court that because she said she couldn't follow the new policy, she couldn't perform her job. Now, Marlo eventually won her case because, as I mentioned earlier, she received over 15 years of favorable performance reviews. In fact, her ratings were excellent, and in many cases, they were at least meet expectations. It was those same performance reviews that played a central role in the outcome of her case. If you want to know more about how she turned things around in her favor, watch my video called Workplace Disability. But for now, let's get back to the topic of this video. Many employees have the expectation that a performance review is about their contribution at work. And this is more than reasonable given that you've been hired to contribute to the success of your employer's business. But why would an employer give a performance review for any other reason? There are several reasons why an employee might receive a bad review. First, an employer may be looking to justify a future termination because this does happen, okay, where an employer wants to lower ratings because they know that they need a paper trail before they terminate an employee. In Marlo's case, there was a new rule that was put in place. And so there wasn't a lot of thought given to how well she performed in the past. They terminated her solely on the fact that she couldn't follow this new rule. But some employers will, in fact, look at performance reviews. And because they know that they are preparing either a reduction in force or they want to terminate a employee, they will look back at those reviews, see that they are stellar, and then they will begin to give you poor reviews. And so that helps protect that employer from a wrongful termination claim because they will have evidence that the poor performance is the true reason that an employee was terminated. A bad review can also be given to avoid giving raises and promotions to employees because a negative review can be a way to justify the denial of that raise or bonus or promotion. And this is true even if an employee is actually performing well. It's sometimes done to cut costs. Or if an employer, for example, favors one employee over another, they want to see an employee move forward and they know that if they rank them similarly, or give them a similar performance review score, that they won't be able to justify that employee that they want to advance over another. A bad review can also be given when an employee has filed a complaint or they are unhappy about something in the workplace and they reported it as misconduct, or even just challenging what leadership is given as a directive because leadership may be offended by the fact that they were challenged at all. And this is just a subtle way to punish someone for participating in something that leadership or your supervisor found offensive. Of course, this can be a form of retaliation, which is illegal in many situations. A bad review can even be given to encourage an employee to quit because instead of firing someone outright, an employer can use negative reviews to make the work environment so uncomfortable for an employee to lower their morale and basically push them out voluntarily. Because who wants to stay in a place where they feel as though they're performing well, but they are still receiving marks that indicate they are not? So, this happens quite a bit, especially if an employer is trying to avoid severance payouts or wrongful termination claims. One of the most frustrating things during a performance review period is where you have employees who work for two separate leaders, and one leader is especially strict, and another leader is reasonable. You can see where the performance review scores come in. And it doesn't matter if the leader who has a strict way of managing has stellar performers on the team. Oftentimes you will see that that leader will still give lower scores than the leader who is reasonable or is a little bit more objective. So, a bad review can happen just because of the type of leader that you have. And that plays a part in office politics and favoritism as well, because reviews are subjective. And so that manager who is restrictive can give lower scores just because that's their perspective, because it's from their point of view. Bad reviews can also happen when an employer uses a stacked ranking system. This is where employees are evaluated in comparison to one another rather than looking at their own individual performance against a metric or an objective standard. They are compared to one another, and those employees who rank lower, even if they have high performance, by, let's say, industry standards, if they are ranked lower than their peers, their performance reviews can be low because they did not outperform their peers. Employees can also receive bad performance reviews when a company is downsizing. They basically lower performance reviews for those employees that they want to lay off as a part of the reduction in force. And this is done so that they can justify reductions and protect the company from any legal claim. Poor performers can receive good reviews for the same reasons we've just covered. But an employer can also give a good review to an employee who is a poor performer because they just don't want to have the confrontation. They want to avoid that difficult conversations. And some managers will go as far as giving overly positive reviews because they want to avoid any complaints being made about them. So they just try to be overly generous to people, tell people that they're wonderful, rather than give a true depiction of that employee's performance. If you find yourself in a situation where you believe the review that you've received is not a reflection of your performance, always ask your manager for specifics because this will help you to get a good understanding about what's actually working, and it will help you to validate and confirm the review that you have received. The bottom line is that performance reviews are not guarantees. They are a snapshot in time. They are not contracts that promise you promotion, advancement, pay increases, or anything of that nature. So you should document your own contributions independently, especially if you suspect that a policy change is coming that might impact your employment. But overall, document your own performance because that will help you in the future as you look to grow your career. If you have been let go despite having really good performance reviews, there are steps that you can take to protect yourself. The first thing is to analyze your circumstances to determine whether or not your termination was retaliatory. Retaliation happens when an employer fires an employee or punishes an employee for engaging in legally protected activities. Those are things like reporting workplace conduct, filing a complaint, participating in an investigation, and you have legal options if your termination is related to something like retaliation. The second thing that you can do is to look for discrimination. Even if your termination is part of a reduction in force or a layoff, it still has to comply with federal and state laws. Discriminatory terminations, those based on race, gender, age, disability, or other protected characteristics, are illegal. And if you want more insight into the legal rules around layoffs, check out my video, Workplace Layoff Gender Discrimination. The third thing you can do is ask for clarity in writing. Reach out to HR. Request a clear explanation for your termination. This can help you determine if the reason that was given to you aligns with the policies in the handbook or federal and state employment laws. You also want to review any documentation. Even if your termination is justified, it has to be well documented. So, employers typically need records of performance issues, records of policy violations that occurred, or whatever business reasons they are using for layoffs. So, if the documentation that you receive is incomplete or inconsistent, remember that might be a red flag. Employment attorney is an excellent resource. They can analyze your facts under the law to determine if you have a viable case. If you do not, and this has happened to you have been terminated and you had a great performance, but you had this experience and you're trying to figure out what to do. Focus on updating your resume, focus on networking, filing for your unemployment benefits if you're eligible to receive them. Because if you have a strong track record at your employer, it can help you land a great new opportunity. And that's where you want all of your energy to go if your termination is valid. Now, I am curious, have you ever seen a situation where good performance reviews didn't protect someone's job? Share your experience in the comments. Thanks for watching today's video, and don't forget to like and subscribe.